We're adding perspective, looking at the successes of Derek Falvey and Thad Levine's front office on today's episode of Locked On Twins.
You are Locked On Twins, your daily Minnesota Twins podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome to the Locked On Minnesota Twins podcast. Today is Monday, February 7th, and I'm your gracious host, Nash Walker. Thank you for making Locked On Twins your first listen every day. We're free and available on all podcast platforms. We've been covering this team religiously over the last 3 years, going on 3 years, and I feel that we do a good job breaking it down here for you. And I'm really excited about today's episode, talking about Derek Falvey and Thad Levine. So this week, it's a front office week. So today, we're going to look at the successes of Falvey and Levine. Wednesday, we're going to look at the failures. Friday, we're going to look at their leash for this year and beyond. Today, we're going to talk about those successes, looking back since they took over before the 2017 season. What has gone well? What are the decisions I think they've made that are strong or have benefited the Twins? Some things are really hard to gauge. It can be really difficult to gauge. Coaching hires, even signing players, it can be hard to gauge because you're thinking of process, you're thinking of results. But I tried to put it as objectively as possible here. Obvious wins for them, obvious successes that can be credited maybe more than 50% to them for making a certain move or for doing a certain thing. So we're going to break down all of those things today. Again, Wednesday, we'll go over the failures. So keep that in mind. Wednesday, we'll break down the failures on an episode. Today, we're going to look at things I think have gone well. And part of this is my own opinion. I'm going to bake in my opinion of things I think have gone well that maybe you may not be ready to say have gone well. But I'm ready to, either way, failures and successes, bake in my opinion on that as well, because I've watched this front office closely and I've followed these moves and I've commented on these moves. We've had episodes about these moves, and I feel that we can break it down in an effective way. So I want to start with their successes, overhauling the organization. Some people might have a problem with me putting my first thing I put, overhauling the organization. Here's the truth. The 2016 Twins were so bad. They were so embarrassing. This team, this organization needed a flip. And I think the most important thing that I found in all of this, my number one takeaway, is just I was appalled looking at the Twins' top 10 prospects when Derek Falvey and Thad Levine took over. If you look at their top 10 prospects, number 1, Nick Gordon, 2, Steven Gonsalves, 3, Alex Kerloff, 4, Fernando Romero, 5, Tyler J, 6, Cole Stewart, 7, Travis Blankenhorn, 8, Alberto Mejia, 9, Felix Jorge, and 10, Lewin Diaz. Those were their top 10 prospects when the Terry Ryan regime was let go after the 2016 season. So right off the bat, to me, when I look at their top 10 prospects, when we talk about empty cupboards, that's what we're talking about. Their top prospect was Nick Gordon, who may or may not be a utility player at the major league level. There's one player on this list, approximately one player, who I'm confident will be a good everyday regular, and it's Alex Kerloff. And he's still on the Twins. So, and he last year was below average in the majors in his rookie year. I'm excited about him for this year. Don't get me wrong, but I'm just trying to highlight the depths of how thin this system was, because 9 out of 10, Lewin Diaz was traded to Miami. I haven't followed Lewin Diaz super closely. I think they called him up last year and he did okay. He was traded for Sergio Romo. We'll talk about that deal as well. But at least 8 of these guys, unsure if they'll ever carve out major league careers. And that's important to mention. So an overhaul, I think, was needed. We just saw too much failure from 2011, 2012, 2013, all the way to 2016. 2015 was a winning season. Too much failure. It was too much. It was time. So the overhaul, I think, was a success for me. And it was a success for me because I look at who they hired. And here, there were 4 coaches they hired who I think were great hires. And it's evidenced by the fact that they were poached. They were taken away from the organization. Jeremy Hefner, now the pitching coach for the Mets. James Rowson, Tanner Swanson, Derek Shelton. All were poached and or promoted after they were with the Twins. Almost all of them Twins fans still say that the team feels their loss. It continues to feel the loss of James Rowson. Impossible. This is a great example. Impossible to quantify that. But we know that the Twins hired good coaches, good people. I think that's believed universally with Hefner, Rowson, Swanson, and Shelton. We're going to talk about Rocco Baldelli next week. We'll go over his successes, his failures, even harder to gauge, but my opinion on how you can measure a manager, we'll talk about that next week. But I think with these four especially, there's a lot more, I think, in the minor league system, coaches, development staff that were hired that were great people, great coaches. And I think these four especially, I think that they were successful hires. Hefner, Rowson, Swanson, and Shelton. Derek Shelton, now the manager of the Pirates. Tanner Swanson's with the Yankees as a catching coordinator, I believe is his title. James Rowson is the bench coach in Miami. And Jeremy Hefner, as I said, the pitching coach for the New York Mets. A large reason why Trevor May signed with the Mets, he said, was because Hefner was there. And Hefner, all the reports on Hefner are that he's great. James Rowson, we still hear about James Rowson. It's been years since he was the Twins hitting coach. We still hear about him. Tanner Swanson helped Mitch Garver become average to sometimes above average catcher behind the plate after in 2018. I think he was -18 in defensive runs saved, comes back in 19, so much better defensively, goes to that one leg stand and behind the plate, working with Swanson, helped a ton. Derek Shelton, his relationship with Baldelli was great. And I think the players love Derek Shelton. And again, evidenced by the fact that now he's a manager. He's a manager on his own. So love the people they brought in for the most part. I think that's been a success. I want to talk more about their successes after this word from Built Bar. Built Bar is the best tasting protein bar ever. I love Built Bars. They are delicious. They are healthy. This is the time of year that I've pretty much given up on all my New Year's resolutions, but not this year. I'm sticking to this resolution to eat right. You should too, thanks to Built Bar. It almost feels like it's not really a resolution because I actually enjoy eating them. They're delicious. Have you tried Built Bar Puffs? If you haven't, you're missing out on one of Built Bar's best tasting bars. Puffs are the first ever protein-infused marshmallow. They're fluffy, they're marshmallowy. They're not just a protein bar. They're a treat, and they're covered in 100% real chocolate. Most Built Bars contain only 130 calories and 4 grams of net carbs. Compare that to a candy bar, which usually has around 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar, and dozens of net carbs. Mint brownie, coconut almond, and new for this month, white chocolate cookies and cream. They're all delicious, and new flavors are coming out all the time. If you think a flavor might be good, they'll make it. It will be delicious and it will be good for you. Go to built.com, use promo code LOCKED15. Go to built.com, use promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your order. Let me tell you about rockauto.com. We love Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing number of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. Why endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questions and wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts on their computer, choosing only the brand their warehouse happens to carry? Save time and money when using Rock Auto. Why choose to spend 30%, 50%, even 100% more for the same parts from a chain store or car dealership? Rock Auto is a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. A Honda Odyssey fuel pump is $353 from the chain store. It's $216 from Rock Auto. Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Right, Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box, so they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. Thank you again for making Locked On Twins your first listen every day. We are free and available on all podcast platforms. More successes from Derek Falvey and Thad Levine's front office. When you look at 2019 and 2020 combined, when the Twins were the best team in the division, they didn't win a playoff game, still made the playoffs after a horrific 2016 season, the wildcard game in 2017. When I look at the two main success years under this regime, which would undoubtedly be 19 and 20, what did they do to help that team succeed? Because there's this perception like the team already had Max Kepler, the team already had Miguel Sano, the team already had Jorge Polanco. They already had all these guys, right? So what did this front office do to help that team win in 2019 and 2020? Well, in 2019, trading for Jake Odorizzi wasn't great in 2018 for the Twins, but ended up being one of their best starters, if not their best starter in 2019 in the division-winning 101-win season. That's a success. The Jake Odorizzi trade, Jermaine Palacios, who they traded, is back in the Twins organization. So that's a gleaming success. Jorge Polanco's extension, obvious success. He's now probably the most valuable player in the organization Byron Buxton actually probably is, and he was extended. There's another success, Byron Buxton's extension. I guess you could say the jury's out on that, but I think we all feel that that was a success to extend Byron Buxton. Thank goodness he signed it. Max Kepler's extension, to a certain extent, it's a lesser extent because Max Kepler is Max Kepler, and he's a good player. He's a fine regular, but you're not getting excess value as you are with Jorge Polanco on that contract extension. But it's a success because if you trade Max Kepler, you're going to get value in return because of his contract. So compared to his contract, he's still a good player. So that makes the extension a success. Michael Pineda, success. Tyler Clippard, success. Trading for Sergio Romo, success. I liked all three of those moves a lot. And then maybe their biggest success so far, going after Nelson Cruz, securing Nelson Cruz, re-signing Nelson Cruz, and then trading Nelson Cruz for Joe Ryan. Nelson Cruz is also Nelson Cruz. He's amazing. He's an amazing player. He's an amazing leader. He's an outstanding person. So Nelson Cruz didn't change because he joined the Twins, but the front office went after him and signed him and brought him in to be that for them, and that was a success for both sides. It ended up being great. And then they turned Nelson Cruz into Joe Ryan and Drew Strotman. Bailey Ober was drafted in the 12th round in 2017 in their first draft. Cole Sands was drafted in the 5th round in 2018. In that same draft, they drafted Josh Winder. Matt Cantorino, 2nd rounder in 2019. Spencer Steer, a 3rd rounder in 2019. Louis Varland, 15th round in 2019. So this is where it gets kind of ambiguous. Do you call those successes? I do, because I really like these guys a lot. Really like Ober. I think we all feel that way. Cole Sands, I think, is going to debut for the Twins this year, has a chance to be a strong mid-rotation starter. Josh Winder is in the same boat. Matt Cantorino might have the best stuff in the system. And all these guys have their marks. They all have their flaws. But I think the Twins, in the last couple of drafts, have added some really interesting and intriguing players. So their farm system, Spencer Steer, really liked the power development. I think the Twins helped him there. He worked his butt off as well. And we heard from him on this podcast about that. Same can be said, I think, for Edouard Julien, who they got out of Auburn. So there are, and Jose Miranda to some extent, even though they didn't draft Jose Miranda, that was the prior regime. I tweeted today the 2016 draft for the Twins looks like it's outstanding. I mean, there were a ton of great players in that draft. But the system, when this front office came in, was depleted. It was depleted. This top 10 was not filled with major leaguers, to say the least. Trading Eduardo Escobar for Yohan Duran, many would call that a failure. I still really like Yohan Duran. Not all these guys are going to work out, but I think they put themselves in a better position for the future by trading for Yohan Duran and putting kind of, everyone loves Eduardo Escobar. He ended up going on to have success for the Diamondbacks in 2019, but who cares, because the Twins were great and set the home run record. They didn't need Eduardo Escobar that year to set the home run record, and they got Yohan Duran, who we hope to see this year. We hope he's healthy, but I call that a success for right now. And you might be rolling your eyes at these, or how could you call these successes? Because the Twins added good players. They added good prospects. And to me, even though we haven't realized that at the major league level, to put yourself in that position rather than not be in that position, and the players going out or the resources given out don't really compare, then yes, it's a success to me. Let's talk more about this after this word from BetOnline. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before as football continues its march through the playoffs right to the big game in a couple weeks. BetOnline.net remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just football. BetOnline has up-to-the-minute info on pro and college hoops, NHL, boxing, UFC, along with live real-time updates of current games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the new amazing offers available for the 2022 season. BetOnline is where the game starts. Again, BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before as football continues its march to the big game. We also have March Madness coming up soon, conference tournaments and college basketball. You're going to want to get involved. BetOnline.net is the best spot for all of your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. Looking more at successes for this front office, I wrote down the Kenta Maeda trade because I think they made a move everyone was looking for going into the 2020 season. And it might have been an aberration for Maeda to put together that shortened year in a weak Central. Hitting wise, we don't know if that's because the pitching is better in the Central divisions or because the hitters were not as good, but Kenta Maeda was outstanding. Finished second for the Cy Young Award, gave the Twins every chance to win, not only in the regular season, but in game one of the playoffs. and that was a success. It wasn't because of Kenta Maeda that the Twins were eliminated so quickly in the postseason. It wasn't because of him. If anything, they don't win the division without Kenta Maeda. They may not even make that expanded postseason without Kenta Maeda, because in a lot of ways, when Barrios was struggling in the first half, they were working through life without Michael Pineda. Homer Bailey was not really available. Jake Odorizzi was injured. Maeda was just rock solid every fifth day. I mean, not only rock solid, he was elite for the Twins. Brusdar Graterol, that hurts. He's a reliever, and I love watching him pitch, and I love cheering for Brusdar Graterol in Los Angeles. But I would take just the 2020 season from Kenta Maeda for Brusdar Graterol, because I think he gave them the best chance to win that year, in a year that they were expected to compete and to make a run in the playoffs. And you can't say that Maeda didn't help them do that or put them in a position to succeed, to get deeper into the playoffs and to compete in 2020. So I think they made the right move there. I do. Looking back, and at the time I was skeptical. Looking back, whatever they get from Maeda after this is gravy to me. He was great in the second half before he got hurt in 2021. Obviously not good in the first half, but overall, Kenta Maeda, a success story for the Twins because of how good he was in that shortened season. Just dominant for the Twins. So the Maeda trade I have on here as well, it kind of fades off. It's hard. It would be hard to rank these, but the the entire Nelson Cruz journey was obviously a massive win for both sides. And so I mentioned their top 10 prospects when this front office came in: Gordon, Gonsalves, Kerloff, Romero, Jay, Stewart, Blankenhorn, Mejia, Felix Jorge. I don't even know if I'm saying that right, because I've never heard of him. I'm sorry. And Lewin Diaz. Now it's Royce Lewis, Austin Martin, Jordan Balazovic, Simeon Woods-Richardson, Yohan Duran, Joe Ryan, Chase Petty, Jose Miranda, Josh Winder, and Matt Cantorino. That is courtesy of MLB Pipeline. So when you hear that top 10 now, a lot of question marks still, especially their 2017 first-round pick, right? A lot of question marks. Jury's still out. It's not looking great at this point, but it's an exciting group. It is. It's an exciting group. And when you look at the pitchers they brought in, and this is kind of my main point, I think, with all of this, and it will be Wednesday as well, is this year is such a barometer for them. This year, I think you will get your answer. If you're like, I don't know about this front office, I'm kind of in the middle. If you answered a 2 or a 3 on that athletic survey, 1 out of 5 if they're heading in the right direction, you don't know, you're like pessimistic. I promise after this year, we will have a much better idea of how things have gone, how they've drafted, how they've developed, because we're going to see all these guys. It's time. It's time to see all these guys, and injuries have derailed some of their journeys. But I'm super optimistic about this group, and I think you should be too. We talk about them all the time. Jordan Balazovic, Simeon Woods-Richardson, Yohan Duran, Joe Ryan we've seen, Bailey Ober we've seen, Chase Petty's stuff is ridiculous. Matt Cantorino might have the best stuff in the system. Austin Martin, everyone kind of fell in love with after the Twins traded for him, and Royce Lewis still oozing with tools, even though it hasn't really come together for him, health or production-wise at the plate. I think there's a lot coming. Josh Winder, I'm missing guys because I think this system is deep. And Keith Law wrote about this system today. He ranked the Twins 18th out of 30. It's kind of sobering, but he did write that out of every team in the second half of his list, that the Twins are maybe the most on the upswing in terms of what they should expect for value over the next year. Wrote that they must get healthy, which is key. I mean, health was a detriment to them all last summer. The year before even, health has really not gone in their favor, but it's time. It's time for this group to start to produce. So as of today, I'm going to put Bailey Ober, Cole Sands, Josh Winder, Matt Cantorino, Spencer Steer, Louis Varland, Yohan Duran, Simeon Woods-Richardson, all those guys as successes, because they're prospects who could turn out to be good major league players, and some of them are top prospects in all of baseball. But after this year, I think a lot of them could creep back into, that's another miss, right? There's another miss. Hopefully it's not, and hopefully the wins outweigh the losses here. But as we look at their successes and we look at their failures on Wednesday, we're kind of making an equation. We're making an equation. I want to know what you think. Put in the comments what you think about these. And if you think there are any more that I'm missing, I think the Byron Buxton extension, winning the Josh Donaldson sweepstakes, again, jury's out on that. If they get back something in a trade, I think Donaldson was really good last summer, but obviously not, and injured in 2020. So let me know what you think in the comments at YouTube. Follow me on Twitter at NashWalker9. Follow the show at Locked On Twins. Let me know your thoughts. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts. Subscribe on Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you for making Locked On Twins your first listen every day. We are free and available on all podcast platforms. Now make your second listen Locked On Bets, your daily one-stop shop for all your gambling needs. Locked On Bets, hosted by your boy Q, with expert analysis and insight from Lee Sterling. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you again. Have a great day. Go Twins.